During the Second World War, untold horrors were inflicted upon the prisoners of the concentration camps. Under the guise of the conflict, the Nazis used it as an excuse to exterminate all those who they deemed undesirable, and because of this, millions were sent to their deaths. It's estimated that over 6 million Jews were killed during the Holocaust, and still today many of the stories of those prisoners are yet to be told. The suffering they endured at the hands of the guards was truly horrifying, but a small number of guards after the conflict had finished were ever brought to trial. Many different war crimes trials were held across Europe to bring the perpetrators of atrocities to justice, and guards such as Irma Grazer, Elizabeth Falkenrath, and also commandants of camps such as Josef Kramer and Rudolf Hirst stood trial. There was one trial that occurred decades after the war had came to an end, but it was to bring the woman responsible of executing a number of children to justice. Inside of Ravensbruck concentration camp and Majdanek, it was alleged that Hermine Braunsteiner was the guard who had ordered the hanging of a young 14-year-old girl. So join us today as we look at the story behind the child execution of Majdanek concentration camp. And remember to support our channel, please make sure to subscribe. Inside of the concentration camps, executions were used to keep prisoners in order to ensure they did not rebel or defy their guards. Often these killings were performed in public, in roll call yards, to scare the life out of the other prisoners. Executions occurred in all of the concentration camps in different ways, for example shooting, but hangings were used to deter any misbehaviour. However, what is incredibly harrowing is the account and eyewitness testimony that said how a female guard named Braunsteiner had ordered the public execution inside the yard of a concentration camp of a girl aged just 14. It's unknown what this girl had allegedly done, but what is the story behind this shocking execution of just a child? The woman referred to in this account of having ordered the execution is Hermine Braunsteiner, a female camp guard who worked at Ravensbruck and also Majdanek. She is remembered in history as a Stomping Mare, who would beat prisoners to death with her bare hands and her whip, and she would also throw children onto trucks by their hair. These trucks would then transport the children to the gas chambers, where they would be killed, and she also gained her nickname as she once stomped an old prisoner to death with her jackboots. She was an immensely cruel woman, but she was known for hanging young prisoners in the yards of the camps where she worked. Often prisoners were punished for small infractions of the rules at a camp, such as stealing food, to ensure that they survived. This was deemed as serious by the Nazis, and because of this they could even be punished by death. Braunsteiner initially applied for a job inside of a concentration camp, as she could make 4 times more money than what she was earning at the time, and she saw service in the Majdanek concentration camp in Poland. This was a labour camp and also an extermination camp, where it's estimated that around 78,000 people would be killed inside of, over half of the 150,000 inmates. Braunsteiner was involved in a number of positions at the camp, and she took part in the selections in which she chose who would be sent to the gas chambers and who would live. She sent thousands of children and women to the gas chambers and often whipped women to death. She was known for her awful temper and rages, and as the Second World War turned against the Germans, she was sent to Ravensbruck as Majdanek had been evacuated. Whilst at Ravensbruck, she maintained her sadistic approach towards prisoners and beat many women to death using her horsewhip. It was said in one incident, I watched Braunsteiner administer 25 lashes with a riding crop to a young Russian girl suspected of sabotage. Her back was full of lashes, but I was not allowed to treat her. After the war, Braunsteiner had emigrated to America and became a US citizen in 1963, living in Queens in New York City. She was known as a friendly person there, but was eventually tracked down by Simon Wiesenthal, the Nazi hunter who sought to bring many war criminals to justice. She had previously been sentenced to 3 years in prison in Austria for her crimes and crimes against humanity, but was released early, and after this she travelled to America. But she was then extradited across to Germany, as it was claimed her citizenship was not valid, as she had not stated her previous convictions for war crimes. During her extradition hearing in Queens, many survivors of Braunsteiner's horrific brutality testified about the woman she was, and they told of the horrific beatings and savage violence she was known for. She later was brought to trial inside of Germany also, and was indicted of murdering dozens of children and people, and also being a collaborator in the murder of over 1,000. She was sentenced to life in 1981 because of this, but during her trials and hearing, there was a story that emerged about her executing a young girl. As mentioned, there was an eyewitness testimony that told of Braunsteiner being the one who ordered other SS guards to hang a 14-year-old girl inside of a camp, presumably Majdanek, as there were efforts by other Nazis here to massacre all of the children in the camp. Operation Kinder was ordered, in which Braunsteiner was complicit in the massacre of a number of children at the camp. During the execution of the 14-year-old girl, Braunsteiner told an SS man to fetch a stool so that the girl could step up into the noose. Inside of one of the courtyards was a simple crossbeam gallows that stood. Throughout the camp's operation, dozens of prisoners were executed on this structure, but that day it would be the sight of a young girl who would haunt the memories of the prisoners. The SS man fetched a stool, and the noose had been dangling from the crossbeam, left up as a constant reminder of death at the camp to terrify the prisoners. The young girl was then stood onto the stool, helped up by the SS man in front of the noose. Braunsteiner then screamed at the girl in her own language, asking if she understood why she was going to be executed and hanged. The girl stated that she did understand, but she was known for standing solemnly, not crying or screaming. The noose was placed around her neck, and then the stool was removed. The sight of the 14-year-old girl executed at the hands of the Nazi guards was a harrowing one for the prisoners, who were there that day, forced to watch the proceedings. But very little is known about who this girl is and what she had actually done inside of the camp to be executed at such a young age. What we do know is that the woman who allegedly ordered this execution was a sadistic war criminal who gained a reputation for ordering the executions of children and being complicit in their mass murders, even helping them to be thrown onto the trucks to be transported to their deaths inside the gas chambers. It's alleged that Braunsteiner may have even hanged many other young children inside of the camps where she worked, showing what a disgusting and evil woman she truly was. She later died, but spent the last 3 years of her life free after she was released from a German prison, after suffering from complications from diabetes. What is strange about Hermine Braunsteiner's case is that the courts and authorities clearly had a guilty war criminal, whose brutality was so severe, and who was known for executing prisoners and murdering them, but they did not sentence her to death after World War II. Many other female guards such as Irma Grazer, Maria Mandel and Elizabeth Falkenrath all met their end at the gallows, being sentenced to death for their crimes committed at various concentration camps. But it's bizarre to consider why Hermine Braunsteiner did not hang for her crimes. The story of the 14-year-old girl brutally executed at the hands of Braunsteiner is one that still remains relatively untold in the canon of the Holocaust and the Second World War. Little is known about her, and it's presumed that after her execution, her remains were then cremated inside the crematoria. But for many of the inmates who were forced to watch that day, the sight was truly horrific, and it was something that stuck with them for the rest of their lives. This was just one account of just one child who was executed at the hands of the Nazis, as there were hundreds of thousands of innocent children who were murdered by one of history's most evil regimes the world has ever seen. Once again, thanks for watching. To support our channel, please make sure to subscribe, and once again, thank you so much for watching.